Recording in progress, got it. So if you look at this screen, if you've been to District Builder before, districtbuilder.org is the website to sign up and begin using the product. If it's your first time using District Builder, this little guy here at the top will look familiar. This is Mandy, Mandy the salamander. Mandy, even though she's a salamander, she's very anti-gerrymandering. I just want to point out that Mandy will pop up on your screen if it's the first time you've used District Builder, and she'll actually walk through how to draw a map for you. I just wanted to point that out in case you haven't been in District Builder yet. We've got a tool built in to help you draw your first map, which is pretty cool. So again, Daniel McClone, I have been working in redistricting for about 10 years now. I've been at Azavia for about 10 years. Azavia is a software development company, a B corporation, which means that we work for a social mission. We have a strong social mission around democratizing political data and building open data products. And so all the work that we do is built towards that mission. And so District Builder kind of falls in line with our mission to build products around that. The goal of District Builder is to make redistricting open and accessible and easy for the general public. We think it's better when people participate, we bring redistricting out from behind closed doors, which was how it happened for so many years, and bring it out into the open so that everyone has access to the same data, the same tools, the same metrics that the politicians have been using to draw districts behind closed doors for so long. A brief bit of background before I jump in. District Builder has actually been around for about 11 years now. We started in the last redistricting cycle. We built a product. We're the first of its kind to actually make redistricting open in the web browser so that people could do redistricting. It wasn't as advanced as it is now, but we did work with Common Cause, League of Women Voters, and a lot of other organizations across the country to hold redistricting competitions. Things kind of fell flat after the last round of redistricting. We had lots of accusations of gerrymandering. It wasn't as open as it could be. It's still not. And due to that, gerrymandering became on the forefront of everyone's mind in the past few years because we had lawsuits, we've had litigation, districts have been remanded, thrown out in court, all kinds of stuff has happened in the past few years. And so we partnered with the Public Mapping Project. The Public Mapping Project is a consortium of academics, Michael McDonald at the University of Florida and Micah Altman at MIT. Those are two guys that have been working in redistricting for decades, doing research, analysis, and promoting open and fair redistricting. We partnered with them, received grant funding from the Sloan Foundation to actually rebuild the software from the ground up, make it even better, make it easier to use, build out some really cool features, and make it available for all 50 states. And that's where we are now. The other thing I'll mention there is that District Builder is completely open source and open. The source code is open. We're the only product that since the beginning has been completely open to the public. And I know a lot of you aren't software developers, and that's totally fine. But I just want to point out, if you are interested in the actual code or how it works in the background, or if you want to help contribute or suggest features or issues or things like that, I'll provide a link at the end. Anyone is welcome to contribute to District Builder. All of the code on how everything works is completely open into the public. And we believe that that's really important in building software. I'll mention that with the Public Mapping Project, we have set up pages on District Builder where you can join the Public Mapping Project in all 50 states and contribute maps in a collaborative way as part of this process. This link is right here, bit.ly join-db.org. You can see a list of all of the organizations that are operating in all 50 states, including all the Public Mapping Project pages, which I'll show you in a second. On all of these pages, you can start joining, you can join the organization, start with templates to start off your map either with existing districts or the current districts, or starting from scratch with a blank map, as well as there are featured maps available, which include a lot of the proposed maps that have been put out by state redistricting commissions. So I just want to point out that we have these pages for all 50 states if you're interested in joining and collaborating in more of that nature, as well as being able to start from existing maps, which a lot of people like to do, or see the proposed maps, which you can also copy into your account and analyze yourself. So I'm going to talk about importing plans first, because all across the country, we're seeing states begin to release redistricting plans. We're right in the midst of that happening. It's going to be happening over the next few months. We're hopefully going to get everything finalized by next year, at least for Congress. So the first thing to do when we talk about importing plans into District Builder is to talk about census geography, because those are a little bit complicated. I know it's kind of hard to understand. The census is very complicated. you already know about this, just bear with me. If you don't, that's totally okay. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want to actually show you the program, but I think it's important to talk about this. When the Census Bureau releases all that demographic data that comes out from the decennial census, they release it at multiple different geographic levels. So they release it for the entire nation. They also release it for regions within the US, divisions, states, counties, and then census tracts, block groups, and blocks. So in order from biggest to smallest on this chart is all the different census geographies. The very smallest level, the most granular, the most finite are blocks, census blocks. Those are literally blocks, like a city block in a city, maybe a subdivision, a street on a subdivision in a suburban neighborhood. Those are the smallest geometry or the geography that the Census Bureau releases demographic data for. So population, race, ethnicity, households, things like that. So when you're importing files, and so the sort of standard that exists for disseminating this data is what's known as a block equivalency files. Block equivalency files, or sometimes they're called district equivalency files or district ID files. These are basically spreadsheets that contain a list of all of the blocks in the state, all of the census assigned IDs for the blocks, as well as all of the district IDs. So if the blocks have been assigned to a district, you'll see that in the file as well. I'll show you an example of that in a second, but I want to just point out what the block ID is made up of, because a lot of people are sometimes a little bit overwhelmed or confused by what this ID means when they see it. So a block ID is made up of a concatenation of several different things. It's made up of a concatenation of the state ID, the county ID, the tract ID, then the block ID, and that's ordered from largest to smallest. So every block ID has this unique identifier that indicates what exactly it is. And so these identifiers are really important because in your file, if you're importing a proposed plan into DistrictBuilder or even other software, they will often require a block equivalency file. It's the most sort of error-free, foolproof way to transfer redistricting data between different software or different programs. Because even with shapefiles or GeoJSON files and other GIS file format, you might have differences in how the software handles it. But a block equivalency file is going to be straight up the most accurate thing you're going to have because it's going to be the assignment of that block to whatever district it's in. So importing into DistrictBuilder requires a block equivalency file. I mentioned before, there's a screenshot of what one would look like on the right. Redistricting Data Hub has done an excellent job of releasing these files for all 50 states for the current districts at the congressional, state upper, and then state lower level. You can find that information on Redistricting Data Hub. You can also find it on Redistricting Commission websites, which I'll show in a second. Some of them are releasing this information, which is great. So again, this contains one field that has a geographic identifier for the blocks and another field which has the district identifier, so the district that block is in. So I'm going to go ahead and just launch right into showing you what DistrictBuilder looks like. So if you've gone to DistrictBuilder and you've logged in, you'll see a page that looks kind of like this. You'll see a list of all of the maps that you've made. At the top, you'll have the ability to join organizations. So I mentioned before that we have a organization pages for all 50 states that you can join and collaborate on redistricting or start from existing plans or see proposed plans. So if you join those organizations, you'll see them listed here. There's also a community maps page where you can actually view all of the maps that everyone has made in DistrictBuilder. You can filter by state and you can start with, you can duplicate or copy someone else's map if they've made it public. And your maps that you've made public will be displayed there. So that's really cool. Also on the top here, there's a resources button, which contains a link to our help documentation, as well as an email address, which you can email us at any time if you need help or support using DistrictBuilder. So when creating a map in DistrictBuilder, there are two options. There's the import option, which I'll show you in a second, as well as the create map option. So a create our new map option. So the new map will just create a new map from scratch. You'll pick a state, you'll pick how many districts you want, you'll pick the population, deviation tolerance, all the stuff like that. I want to talk about importing a map. So I'm going to click on import project. And you'll see an option to upload a file. So this is where you'll want to upload your block equivalency file, or the CSV of the block equivalency file, into DistrictBuilder. So I want to point out that there are a few different sources to get block equivalency files. For example, redistrict2020.org is a website that's actually run by the Public Mapping Project that has been adding all of the shapefiles, GeoJSON, district builder URLs, Dave's redistricting URLs, as well as block equivalency files for every plan that's been released by states up to this web page. This is a great resource if you want to start with, or if you want to view all the proposed plans, download the files, see them in District Builder, etc. Some states, Virginia being a good example, the Virginia Redistricting Commission has actually released all of the draft maps they've been working on, which has been quite a lot at the House, Senate, and congressional district level. You can download a report on the data, see the data in a spreadsheet, or you can download the GIS data for all of those maps as well. If you download the GIS data, you'll see a block equivalency file that they have. So what I'm going to do is pull that up so you can see what it looks like. So this is what that block equivalency file looks like in a spreadsheet. So it's a little bit daunting because, I mean, you know, we all love Excel, right? We don't love how Excel assumes things about our data. And the one problem with block equivalency files is that Excel will always try to assume that our GeoID, or that block ID, should be displayed as scientific notation. Well, it shouldn't be displayed as scientific notation, but there's a really easy fix to that, which I'll show you. If you right click on that field, go to Format Cells. This is a little trick that you know you may have seen before, you may have done before. But if you go in there and you click on a custom format for the cell, all block IDs are 15 characters long. So if you just add in 15, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 zeros in there, it'll automatically, you know, click OK. I'll now be displaying the full block ID for that state. Yeah.
Are you trying to share the? Are you trying to show the Excel?
Yes.
Oh, it's not showing right now.
Oh no. Okay.
Page. Thank you, Aaron, for pointing that out.
Sorry about that. Let me switch over. Oh gosh, sorry about that, guys. Okay, here we go. Can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see it. Folks, can you see the Excel? Get any thumbs up or anything? Great. We're good.
Okay. Oh, I apologize for that. Sorry. So what I did was I opened up the block equivalency file in Excel. It displayed it as scientific notation, but you can format the cell with 15 characters to display the entire block ID. I just want to point out, because Excel is a little bit tricky working with CSVs and block equivalency files. And sometimes people get hung up on this a little bit because Excel will convert it to a scientific notation, and you don't want that. You want it to be displayed as the full 15 character block ID. And you can see that, you know, one field again, this is the block ID for all the blocks in Virginia. And then this is the district that they're assigned to. So I'm going to close out of that. And oops, go pull my screen back up. Sorry about that. So again, I got that from the Virginia Redistricting Commission website. Many other states are also releasing this data as well. So what I'm going to do is go over here, back to this screen. I'm going to either you can either drag and drop the CSV directly into here, or you can browse files and select a location on your hard drive where you have that CSV, and then we'll upload it into District Builder. So you can see I dropped it in here. It said upload success. If there are any issues with the block ID, it'll flag it for you. It'll say that there's an error. Sometimes states have released adjusted block data where they've split blocks or they've changed them. You know, they've changed the data a little bit. If that happens, it'll be flagged in here and it'll show you. In this case, the file matches the blocks that we have in District Builder. You can see that it has automatically determined that it's for the state of Virginia. Again, because those IDs in that file were the IDs for Virginia, so it knows that, so it's detected that it's from Virginia. You have an option to either create the map and have it internally, only you can view it, or you can contribute it to an organization. So I mentioned before that for Public Mapping Project, there are all those organization pages that you can contribute to if you'd like. So that's an option. In this case, I'm just going to select no organization. The map, I can still share the map, but I'm not actually adding it collaboratively to that organization. Out here, you can select the number of districts that you want or what type of map it is. So in this case, it was a congressional block equivalency file. So I'm going to select US House of Representatives, 11 districts. I could actually create a custom district map. I could enter any number of districts that I want. But since there's only 11 districts assigned in this file, I'm just going to stick with the US House of Representatives. I can also set the population deviation tolerance for my map. So this basically says how far from the average district size in population should your districts be. So in general, this can be 5%. So it can be either 5% above or below the target for legislative maps. So for state Senate or state House maps. For congressional maps, this actually has to be 0. And the reason for that is that in the past, several court cases have determined that there really can be 0 population deviation for all congressional maps across the US. So in other words, it has to be within like 0 or 1 person difference between all of the districts. Once you've done that, you can click Create Map, and it will open up the map for you. A few seconds here. All right, so it has created the map for us. So this was, again, a map of one of the proposed plans from the Virginia Redistricting Commission for the state's congressional districts. So automatically what it's going to do is it's going to give you a name. It's going to call it Virginia. The first thing that you might want to do up here at the top left is click that little, I went pretty fast there, but there's a crayon there or a pencil. You might want to click that and just kind of change it. I'm going to change it to Virginia Proposed Congressional Districts. Hit enter, and it'll change the title of the map for me. And that's just going to make it easier for you to find it in your own directory later on. On the left-hand side, you'll see a list of all of the districts. So Virginia has 11 congressional districts. It's going to show you the population for each of the districts, the deviation, which is that what we said before, a racial breakdown, and if you hover over that, you can see it'll bring up a pop-up window with the racial breakdown of the district, the partisan voting index score, or the PVI of the district, as well as the compactness score of the district. Next to the district's label, there's these 2 little arrows pointing out. If you click on that, it will expand the window, and you'll get to see more detailed demographic data about the district. So the percentages of each of the race categories, a majority race field indicating whether it's a majority minority district or a minority coalition district, as well as some more detailed information on the political data that's available in there. So in this case, we only have 2016 election results for Virginia. Some states have 16 and 2020. Some states don't have anything yet, but we're working on acquiring that political data and adding it to the app as we go along. One cool thing about this is that these little pins here, you can actually pin or unpin data from the left side panel. So let's say that I don't really care about PVI. I don't want to use political data. What I can do is click this pin here. I can actually unpin it so that when I minimize this, I don't have PVI available on the left anymore. The same token, I can pin additional fields on the left if I want to automatically be able to view them as I draw the map. And one note about the deviation field. So if you hover over this, it'll give you some information about what you have to do to the district to make it equal population. Equal population is a standard in redistricting. In this case, this is a proposed map from the Virginia Redistricting Commission that they didn't even make equal population. They're supposed to. I think that's because this is a draft map and they're working towards an equal population map, but they're not quite there yet. So this map is made up of districts that are well under and well above what they're supposed to be for the target. So I assume that they're working towards an equal population map, but it's not there yet. One other tricky thing here, and I'm going to note, is that you can see that there is, so we've got districts 1 through 11 here. At the very top, there's this 0 with the line through it. That's unassigned. That's an unassigned district. So there's a block out there that is not assigned to a district. This is the official file that we got from Virginia. So it looks like, interestingly, in this file, they forgot to select a block and add it to a district. DistrictBuilder has a really easy way to fix that. And I want to point out that this is something that frequently happens when you're drawing a map. Sometimes it even happens when you're importing a map. There can be errors. There can be things wrong with the data that you imported. And sometimes it comes from redistricting commissions or legislatures, and that's okay, but we can fix that. At the top right, there's a looking glass here, and you can find unassigned. So if I click on that, find unassigned, it'll actually zoom in, go all the way down to the block that is unassigned. So for some reason, Virginia's Redistricting Commission did not assign this to a district. I'm going to click on blocks, there are 3 options at the top here. It's going to really quick just warn me that editing blocks is for advanced users, and that's okay. So if I click Start Block Editing, I can now edit the block level data. And so this area around it is in District 1. And so I'm going to click on District 1 over here on the left. And now I'm going to click on this empty block right there. And you can see that as I click on it, you see that everything changes on the left there. You get real time, in real time will update the information on the left about the district. So if I click Accept, I have now added it to District 1. And it'll update there, it'll become green. And you can see here now that there's a green check here because there's no more unassigned blocks in your map. And if you're making a map, you'll really want to make sure that you get to that point. You have to assign all of the geographies in the map. So all of the blocks have to be assigned to a district map. A few other things I'll point out before I move on about just drawing a map before I get into the evaluate metrics. There are a few different ways to draw a map. So you can do the point and click selection, which is what I showed before. So just clicking on a district or clicking on a block and it'll assign it to something on the left. You can also use this bounding box tool to select multiple blocks at a time. Or you can use this paintbrush and you can kind of change the paintbrush size here and select multiple blocks that way. The 3 different layers that you can draw maps with are counties, block groups, and blocks. And this is in order from largest to smallest. So we talked about the hierarchy before. Counties being the largest layer in which you would draw maps. Block groups are divisions of counties. And then of course, blocks are divisions of block groups. So blocks themselves are the smallest geographies. Now, if you're making a state legislative map, counties and block groups are probably fine to work with. But because congressional maps have to be equal population down to 0 people, deviation, you will end up having to use blocks. But I want to point out that we have something that pretty easily enables you to build those 0 population deviation maps. Over on the right, there's a labels dropdown, and this allows you to label all of the blocks in the map with their population. And you can label it by population as well as the different race or even political party information if you'd like. So this enables you to really easily see which blocks have a certain number of people that you need to get to when you're drawing your map. All right. And what I'm going to do now is just talk about a little bit what's on the top here. So when you're drawing your map, you have an option to share it. By default, everything is published, so it's made available to the public. There's a URL that you can copy and send to people, and they can view the map. They can't edit it, but they can view the map and play around with it and view it on an interactive web page. You can only share it with a link, and the difference with that is that anything that's published will show up on our community maps page or be visible to the organizations. If you do only share with link, the map will not be visible on our community maps page, nor will it be shared with organizations. Only people will be able to see it if you share them, if you give them this URL. And then private means only you can see it. Organizations can't see it, no one else can see it, only you. That URL for this map will not work for anyone else. There's a resources tab, which links to our documentation, as well as has an email, contact us option. There's also keyboard shortcuts. This was part of we wanted to make this really easy for people to use as well as accessible. So these are keyboard shortcuts. So if you're someone that's kind of a keyboard whiz and you want to use these, you're more than welcome to. I don't very often, but for some people, they really like using them. Makes it much faster. And then finally, there are export options for your map. So after you're done with it, you can export it as a shapefile. So you can import it into other GIS software, or export as a GeoJSON, which you can also use in GIS software. When you do export your map, it will export it with all of the demographic data, all of the evaluation metrics, which I'll talk about next. So you'll have all that information bundled together in the map, which is very convenient. There's also an export CSV option. This exports as a block equivalency file. So you'll have that block equivalency file if you make a map here and you want to bring it to another type of software that requires a block equivalency file. You could do that here. All right, so let's talk about analyzing maps. DistrictBuilder has several tools built in to analyze maps with some of the very commonly used metrics in redistricting. Of course, we talked about equal population. There are different thresholds for that, which you can set when you make your map, but then you can evaluate it on whether you're hitting those thresholds. So on the top right-hand side of the map, there's an evaluate button. So if I click that, it will open this evaluate panel on the left-hand side. And here are the evaluation metrics that we provide in District Builder. So first is equal population. That is, does your district map reach that threshold which you've set for it? So in this case, we set the population threshold to be 0% because a congressional map has to be equal population. It's got a red X here because it doesn't meet that. This is their own proposed map that doesn't meet that. Again, I think it's because it's a draft map and they're not done yet. It'll tell you how many districts are within 0% of the target population for each district in the state. In this map, it's 0. It will give you a list of all the districts, the deviation above or below by percent and by roll number. And you can also view it on a map. So you can see which districts are above and below the equal population threshold. There's also a contiguity checker. So in addition to equal population being a required metric, districts also have to be contiguous. And by that, it means every part of the district touches itself. So there can't be a piece of the district that's completely separate. That would not be contiguous and it would not be legal. So what this just does is it just checks that all parts of the district touch each other. There's no parts of the district that are across the street from it, or across a river, some area where the district doesn't actually touch. And so that's what this is checking. In this case, all 11 districts are contiguous. I'll also mention that earlier I showed a tool that lets you find unassigned blocks. So if you have blocks that aren't assigned to a district, that same tool will let you find districts that are not contiguous. So if you've accidentally made a district that's not contiguous, you can use that tool. You can find a piece that's not contiguous, and District Builder will let you join them together to make it contiguous. Then there are some optional metrics. And so these are ones that are not always required, but can be. And so we've listed them as optional. The first one I'll talk about is competitiveness. So we're using the Cook PVI score. That's the partisan voting index of the district. That's essentially kind of an average of the past 2 presidential election results, or only the last one we have available. In the case of Virginia, as I said, it's only 2016. And it basically compares the district to how the national election turned out. So if a district is more Democratic leaning than the last presidential election, or more Republican leaning than the last presidential election, you'll see that here. So you can see it displays that on a map. Districts that are red here are lean R, districts that are blue are lean D, and then there's one district that is just Democratic, which is up here right outside of Washington, DC. Districts that are even, districts that are between, I think it's 1 point D and R, are listed as even, and so those show up as gray here on the map. In general, so partisan gerrymandering, actually, the Supreme Court said is not technically illegal, which is kind of crazy in my opinion. However, lots of state legislatures or state courts have determined that partisan gerrymandering is illegal. So one good thing to do here is kind of look at the map and say, okay, does this kind of reflect the state? In this case, you could probably argue that this is somewhat reflective of the state. You've got some lean R districts, some lean D districts. If you had a state like Virginia, which is a slightly Democratic leaning state, and you had all Republican districts and only one Democratic district, you might say, okay, that looks like it could be partisan gerrymandering. If you scroll down here below, you can see it has the partisan voting index of each of the districts. And there's a lot more about partisan voting index on our website. We have a blog where we wrote about how this is calculated and what it kind of means. I'll also mention that we have a plan score integration. If you've worked with plan score before, they're another great resource that just dives into a whole bunch of partisan metrics that could be indicative of gerrymandering. If you click, I'm not going to do this now because it'll take a little while, but if you click this button here, you can send your plan to plan score. Plan score will analyze it and give you all the different partisan metrics that you want without having to export it and bring it in. This will do that automatically for you. We also have a majority minority checker. So due to the Voting Rights Act, majority minority districts are required in many places. So what this will do is it will look at if the majority race in your district is 50% or more of one of the minority races, it'll display that on here. So you can go through, you can see it showed on a map. You can also see them listed here. So each of the districts, along with the majority race, There's also a demographic chart here that you can hover over and get more information on that. So you can see in this case, this map has 5 majority minority districts, and those are all minority coalition districts. In other words, a minority coalition district is where 50% or more of the district is made up of a coalition of many minorities, as opposed to one specific minority. And I'll go back and show you our last evaluation metric, which is county splits. So many states have rules or laws or requirements that districting plans minimize the number of splits that take place. So minimize county splits or minimize municipal splits, things like that. So what this does is it'll show you how many counties are split in the map. In this case, there are 20 out of the 133 counties that are split in this congressional map. And again, you kind of need to know the context of the state. I mean, in a congressional map, you're going to need to split a county that has a bigger population than what a district could be, right? So in some cases, it is going to be expected that counties are going to be split. So this is one of those things where you need to take another look and say, okay, well, this county is split. Did it need to be split or did it have to be split? And that's how you can kind of find out if something is indicative of gerrymandering or splitting more places than they had to. And so for each of these modules, I just point out that you can actually view a map of the data. You could take a screenshot of this, and if you want to share it with someone and share it that way, you can also use the share button to share the link, and anyone else can go into your map. They can't change it, but they can view all of these evaluation metrics as well. All right, so I'm going to go back over here and just kind of finish up, and I can go back. I can jump back in there if anyone has any questions. But I can also put these links in the chat. But I just want to point out we have a lot of resources available. We have a getting started guide to help you getting started drawing a map. I encourage people to join organizations. There's a link there that shows you all of the organizations that we have running in all 50 states to help you start with existing plans, see proposed plans, or just contribute to redistricting in a different place. We have redistricting happening in Philadelphia and San Bernardino, California, all over the country. So I encourage people to get to join an organization and start contributing. Our email is districtbuilder@azavia.com or support@districtbuilder.org. You can always get to that via the contact us link at the top of the page under the resources menu. And then lastly, we have a public roadmap. So anyone who is interested in either contributing to District Builder, if you're a software developer, or if you have ideas for features, or if you see something that's wrong, or if you see a bug, which does happen when you build software, you can contribute and let us know that that's happening. And you can also see what we're working on and see what we're moving towards and what we're heading towards. So thank you, everybody. We've got plenty of time left for questions, or I can go dive deeper into things. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. We're going to kick it off, and I'll just ask some questions from the chat. And for folks who I asked a question from the chat, you can feel free to expand on it if I'm not giving enough information. But Jim Masters asked about redistrict2020.org on who the parent organization or sponsor is, because there's no explanation or overview on their site, just sort of list the information immediately. So is there like a way to know who is contributing to the site, like who sponsors it, who seeks over for Daniel?
Yeah, great question. That is run by Michael McDonald. Michael McDonald is a professor at University of Florida. You may have heard it. He's been in the news lately over that free speech case in Florida. He is running it. I think some students are contributing to it. And I'm going to go to the webpage now. There may not be. Yeah, so it is all. It's also all on GitHub. So if anyone, people can contribute to it on GitHub as well. Upload the proposed plans there. View all the raw data on GitHub. But that is being run by Michael McDonald from University of Florida.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'll put that in the chat as well for the about. Let's see here. Alexander asks, just curious, why is there a county split evaluation option, but not a city split evaluation option?
That's a great question. So in most cases, county splits are kind of like the county is the kind of the highest level that we have in District Builder. So for us to build a county split module was really easy. In terms of city splits, it's a little bit more challenging because cities are defined different ways in different states. In some cases, cities are defined with just the incorporated boundaries of the city. The census has different versions of types of cities. So it's a little bit more challenging for us to build a tool to do city splits. Also, in some cases, city splits are okay in some cases. So it's really kind of a case-by-case basis of where you would not want to have city splits. All that being said, I think we should have city splits for the states where that is an issue. And that's something that we're working on. It's not available in the app yet, but that's something that we have planned to be worked on. That's a great question.
Richard asks, is compactness the least gerrymandered method?
Compactness. You know what? That reminds me that I think I may have skipped right over that. I think I forgot to talk about that. Did I talk about that? I may have missed it. I apologize. We have a compactness metric in District Builder. This is using the Polsby-Popper method, which is a ratio of area to perimeter. Regarding the question, compactness has been somewhat controversial in terms of whether it's considered gerrymandering or not. I think that it all comes down to the context around the district or the plan. Compactness, or a district that has a low compactness score, and by low I mean usually like in the 20s or teens, that can be indicative of gerrymandering. For example, if a district has all kinds of crazy appendages, pieces sticking out over here, all kinds of crazy stuff going on, it could be indicative of gerrymandering. It's possible that the district is gerrymandered. However, it's also possible that the state itself has crazy wild geography. And so in Virginia, for example, there are lots of areas around the Chesapeake Bay, along the Potomac River. Maryland is another great example where the district lines are legitimately gerrymandered, but it's hard to tell because the Chesapeake Bay has such wild geography with all the different rivers and inlets. And oftentimes, district boundaries are drawn along legitimate boundaries, which may be rivers, which may have crazy, wild, complex boundaries. So my suggestion is, look at the compactness numbers. If you see a district that's not compact, it's possible it's gerrymandering. You got to take another look, but you got to look at the surrounding geography. It might just be that it follows a municipal boundary. It follows a river. It follows a mountain. And sometimes those don't have clean geographies or clean boundaries. So indicative of gerrymandering, possibly, but not necessarily, gerrymandering. You need that context of the geography to know for sure.
Ray, Alexander asks, there's a big problem with city splits in Georgia currently. Is Georgia on any priority list for this feature in the future?
At this point, we don't have Georgia on a priority list, but that is a really good point. I know, again, yeah, in some states, it's a lot more relevant than other states. So it's good to know that that is a priority in Georgia. And that's something that we can work towards. Thank you.
Ray, Ramona asks, thanks, Daniel, very informative. I work in a small town that has an all-at-large board of alders. There are 5 seats, of which 4 live within 6 blocks of each other. How can redistricting work in an environment such as this?
Wow, that's wild. And, I'm curious what state that is in, because I know in California, for example, they passed a law actually, how long ago, maybe about 10 years ago, that says that basically made at-large boundaries illegal. So every state, every city, town, village in California has been not just redistricting, but districting all of their at-large boundaries into districts. You could make a strong argument that at-large boundaries do not reflect, end up electing people that do not reflect the diversity of cities. That's a very important argument. And if your city or your town has a large minority population, that's an even more relevant argument, because in many cases, you could argue it's discriminatory to have at-large boundaries. If, let's say, your city is 40% Hispanic and you have an all-white city council, something's going on there. So you could argue that it's actually very important to have districted boundaries. That being said, it's something that is probably going to be challenging to propose. In California, it was, I actually don't recall if it was it may have been a ballot measure in California. It also may have been a Supreme Court case, I can't recall. But either way, it's challenging because either the elected officials have to change the law themselves to basically vote them out of a job, elect them or pass a law to get them their own selves out of office, or you have to file a lawsuit and say that this is discriminatory. There should be districts to represent the people and the diversity, and so that can be challenging. But those are probably the two routes you'd have to go. But it depends on the state. Some states might be easier than others. If your state does have that ballot measure system, maybe you could do a ballot measure to have that. Yeah.
Great. Ramona states exactly. Ironically, the town is majority African American. In this case, the white side of the tracts is underrepresented. Great, great. Any more questions? Definitely, please feel free to put it in the chat. I'm happy to answer it. Let me just share the links again. So as Daniel was mentioning during the presentation, there are a couple links. So there's the homepage for District Builder, as well during the beginning of the presentation to sort of join any of the projects that are being worked on currently, as well as a getting started guide and an email to reach out to. Great. Gonna give it one more ask for if there are any more questions right now. And again, if there are no questions, again, feel free to reach out to either Daniel at districtbuilder@azivia.com or reach out to us at rdhi@info@redistrictingdatahub.org. We will be sending out a recording of this as it's being recorded right now. So let me